Okay, welcome to ConE 251, Mechanical and Electrical Methods and Materials. Really, this class is about mechanical and electrical plan reading. Just a little bit of history on this class. This class did not exist when I was a student. This class is actually a result of alumni and student feedback. Our graduates expressed a concern that they didn't know enough about mechanical and electrical systems and didn't even know enough about mechanical and electrical plan reading to be proficient at it when they left Iowa State. So as a result of their feedback, we started this class probably 20 or so years ago. It was after I graduated, but just before I came back to teach in 2005. Started right between 2000 and 2005 to teach students plan reading skills in mechanical and electrical. And just from a personal perspective, my opinion on mechanical and electrical is that they are the hardest plan sets to read, for sure. They really are. Structural makes sense. Architectural makes more sense. In other words, you start at the bottom, you work up, and everything kind of builds on itself. It just seems to make a lot more sense. Mechanical and electrical, there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of symbols that you may not even find a definition for. They're drawn by people that are experts, and they assume, as a starting point, they assume that these plans are being read by people that are already experts at it. With that in mind, it does make it kind of difficult for a beginner to start in with. So the purpose of this class is to really give you some insight into how to read the mechanical electrical plans, how to find stuff, how to be more efficient at it. And to do that, one thing I've learned is the best way to learn about plan sets is to actually have to do something. So the labs force you to do something. I'm going to ask questions. You're going to have to find the answers to them. You're going to have to do a little bit of quantity takeoff, not a whole lot, and it won't be every lab, but you'll have to do a little bit of quantity takeoff, a lot of plan reading. And by doing that, at the end of this class, you'll be able to read mechanical and electrical systems a whole lot better. So with that in mind, let's get some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Yes, this is fall of 2020. I am your instructor, Brad Perkins. Everyone that is in this class has either taken 241 a previous semester or is in it now. So I'm not going to go over the contact information and the organization of this class is all online, including labs. And office hours, 3 to 4, works really good on Tuesdays because that's the time that we normally have class. But also, it's a good time to schedule a WebEx meeting or a teleconference. All right, let's go down. Yes, it's good. Videos will be available on YouTube, just like with 241. All right, class policies. Group work is required. In this class, it's all of your grade. All right. Now, something that we need to talk about for labs in 251 and 241. Understand that sometimes group work can be frustrating. Sometimes students would like to get rid of a team member. All right. Understandable. So years ago, I instituted a firing policy for ConE 241 and 251, and now most other classes also have a firing policy. If you have a team member that is not performing up to the team's expectations, they can be fired from the team. Also, you're going to be getting your team assignments probably later today. I think Jeremy's going to be sending them out. So stand by for team assignments, but you can fire a team member, but there are rules, okay? You can't just come to me one day and say, all right, we want to kick this person out. Well, you can say it, but it won't happen that fast. First, you have to let Jeremy and I know that there's a problem going on. All right? And it can't just be, this person sucks. We don't like him. Not good enough. We need concrete reasons why they are not performing up to expectations, right? Some examples. They don't do anything on a lab. Okay, that's a performance issue. They don't show up for the lab. They're not reliable. They don't communicate. They don't respond. Those are all reasons for firing someone from your group. Now, here's the process. First, you tell Jeremy and I, hey, we have an issue. Second, we're going to ask you to list out the issue. All right, you've got to concrete, all right, this happened and this happened and this is what's going on. I want reasons. I want you to write them down as well. Next, it's not fair just to fire someone, even if they're not performing. It's not fair to fire them without giving them a chance to change. And this part is critical. First, I'm going to ask if you've mentioned these things, and that should really be the start, okay? You should, if you're having problems with a teammate, you should go to them and have a professional discussion. You should go to them and say, look, this is the issue. Here's where we need you to be. Here's where you are, and here's the difference. Part of that should be a discussion of, look, these are the things that you're doing good, and we want you to keep those things. But part of the discussion is, these are the things we need you to change, and most importantly, here's how. Tell them what they're doing wrong, but also tell them what they need, how they can go about fixing it. Concrete things they can do. It's like, look, if I send you a text message or an email, respond within an hour, right? I mean, that's something concrete. It's measurable. It's clearly defined, right? If you're saying, you're giving us your part of the lab like 10 minutes before it's due, all right? Have deadlines. Say, okay, the day before, we're going to meet at 5 o'clock, the day before it's due, compile everything, check each other's work, right? And go from there. So after that, after you give them feedback, let's say they don't listen, you come to Jeremy and I. We're going to talk to the individual. Give them a chance to change. And then if they don't, and the behavior continues, then yes, that's the point at which you can come to us and say, all right, we need to make a change. You can fire someone. And it hasn't been used a whole lot, the firing policy, but it has happened. And that's uncomfortable. If somebody gets fired from their team, they have two choices. One, they can do all the remaining labs and final project and everything else by themselves. And let me just state that doing projects by yourself is not a good way to go. These were not meant to be individual. I do not intend for them to be done individually. You do not want to do them by yourself. So, if you're fired, though, you might have the chance. If you're fired, you may get put in with another team. One, a team could decide to pick you up. All right, let's say somebody's down a member. Sure, that could happen. Or two, you could be paired up with someone else that's been fired from another team. That's happened. And in which the team of people that have been fired get to work on it by themselves. All right? Actually happened one semester. We had 3 people fired from teams. They ended up forming a team, and their final project was definitely not the worst of the class. I'm not going to say it was awesome, but it wasn't the worst one that was turned in that semester. And I think part of that is that all 3 of them were really worried. Look, I'd really rather not use this particular policy, but I also want this class to be fair. And by fair, I mean if somebody is not performing, they need to be held accountable. And this is the best way I know of to hold somebody accountable. Some suggestions on this. The time to bring us problems is not finals week. All right? That is not the time. Now, you could bring problems to us on finals week, but nobody will probably get fired. All right? They may, however, get their grade adjusted. That can happen as well. At the end of the semester, you're going to review each other. You're going to provide feedback on each other. And if necessary, we will adjust people's grades. For example, if somebody it just isn't doing their part, I mean, maybe they're not bad enough to go to the trouble of firing them, but let's say that just doesn't seem right that they should get the same grade as the other team members, then yes, we will do that. Once again, that's done on a case-by-case basis, and I do want the chance to talk to each individual on the team about it. I want to hear both sides of the story, not just one. Let me give you some examples of how this has gone in previous semesters. Had this happen several times, but a couple students come in and they wanted to talk about their team member. And they basically said, all right, we didn't fire him, but we don't feel like this guy should get the same grade as us. Really didn't do anything. What they did do was wrong, and the other two of us had to fix it. It was just not a good deal. We don't think they should get the same grade. And I said, okay, all right, I get your point. I'll talk to them about it. But I got to ask, did you mention this to them, this person, sometime during the semester? And they said, well, gosh, no. We're friends. It would just be awkward. I said, okay, it'd be awkward. All right. But you're willing to come in. You're basically coming and telling me that this person's kind of a dirtbag, right? They're like, well, yeah. I said, you didn't tell them, but you'd tell me they're a dirtbag. Like, did you mention this to anybody else in the class? Like, you're sitting in lab and they're not there again. They just didn't join the group. And you ever just complain about this person to other people in the class? They're like, well, yeah, probably. I'm like, okay. So you won't tell them that you think they're a dirtbag, but you'd tell me and you'd tell the rest of the class. And your friends? And they're like, well, gosh, when you put it that way, I said that in all honesty, the kindest thing that you could do to somebody that's not pulling their share of the weight is to let them know. That is the best thing that you could do to them. Because the worst thing that could happen to them is that they don't pull their share of the load. You never want to work with them again. Other people see it happening and don't want to work with them again. And then they go on to the next class and think that that's okay. That's the worst thing that could happen from this class. No one will remember what grade somebody gets, but people will remember a bad teammate. So, also, I know that giving feedback is uncomfortable and difficult. I do. I get this. It is uncomfortable. However, you need to understand that the industry that you're going into, this is part of it. It's what we do. Almost all of you are headed towards some type of a management function at some point in your careers. You will have to give feedback constantly to people. If you don't like it, tough. Get over it. You're going to have to do it constantly. You're going to have to hear it constantly. You're constantly going to get evaluated and compared. So get over it. And this is the time to start. All right? So, feedback. It's necessary. Something else another example that happened, and then I'll move on. One semester I had a group come in and it was a team of 4, and 3 of them all had the same thing to say about the 4th person. Didn't participate much, was unreliable, didn't do a very good job. whatever. And I said to them, like, okay, this is the first I'm hearing of it though, and it's the last week of the semester, so I might not adjust their grade a whole lot. I think I might have taken it from, I don't even know if I adjusted it, a third of a letter grade, right? From like a C to a C minus. I don't even think